Hi, I'm Dave LaBelle. Today we're going to talk about composition. You know, a lot has been written about composition. There are a lot of books about composition. And I think sometimes that, some of the teaching can actually restrict us from being as creative as we naturally would be. So I want to talk about composition today, and I hope that this is the first part of three parts. But today I want to talk really more about what it is and what it's not. Number one, composition really is I think it's, part of what I call the TLC, the timing, light, and composition, which I think is the foundation or the core for all good photography. Technically, we would say it's the way that elements, subjects, objects, and space are arranged or composed in your pictures. And I'm going to underline I should have underlined it in the slide. What most people think about when they think about composition, at least it's one of the first things that they're ever taught, is what they call the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds really is this. It's the proposition that if your subject is in one of these intersections, one of these where you see these spots, A, B, C, and D, that if your subject's in one of these intersections, that it's going to be a more interesting picture. And I think generally that is true. But it can be also a dangerous thing to be teaching, because it can really be so rigid that we're afraid to do anything that is, to make any pictures that are not in this prescribed arranged space. So my first rule of composition that I teach anyway is that there are no rules. Now, I know this upsets some people. It probably upsets a lot of teachers saying, wait a minute, I spent my whole time trying to teach these students about composition and you're trying to undo all of that. I'm not trying to undo it. I'm trying to liberate people. Composition really is a choice. When you think about it, you are the composer of your pictures. You're the one that decides what angle that you're going to use, what lens you're going to use, whether you're going to shoot higher, lower, close, or farther away. That is a personal choice. You arrange your compositions in your viewfinder. You decide what will be in the frame and how subject and space will be arranged. I saw this arrangement, I saw this color, I saw this light, and I thought, if only somebody would come into this frame and complete the frame, at least in the way that I saw it, the way I imagined it. And eventually somebody did. A person could say, well, I don't think that's a great picture, and that's not the point, whether it's a great picture or not. It is the picture that I imagined. It's the composition that I chose. It's the composition that I wanted. For me, composition is the stage that you build in your viewfinder while you're waiting for the performance to begin. This scene in Italy here, I saw the space, I saw the couple in the middle, and I thought, I'm going to watch this, and I'm going to build that compositional stage, and then I'm going to wait for that performance to happen. If you were going ahead, you were part of a crew that that went before a band, and you went and you built a stage, and you put up lights, and you worked on background. You did everything to prepare that stage for the band that was following you. Once the band showed up, and once they were on the stage performing, then it all comes together. And that's the same way it is with photography, the same way it is with photo composition. And besides, no two people see the world exactly the same. We're different heights, We have different experiences. We're drawn to different things, different colors, different shapes, different kinds of light, different architecture. So we're just different, unique human beings that cannot be, put in this box that says, okay, something has to be in a certain space or it's not going to be interesting. This is the composition that I chose, and the performance happened. One person might look at this and say, I'm photographing, these bales of hay, and they might say, well, this is why I want an overall view. I want to have space. I want the repetition of form. I like all these bales, and so I'm going to use a wide-angle lens. The next person might say, well, I feel different about it. I just feel like by using a longer lens and compressing this and showing these circles all gathered together, that I find more interesting. It's a personal choice. Composition is also one of the ways that we express our individuality. I do a lot of pictures from the back. I do a lot of pictures that have a lot of space in them. Sometimes I shoot very tight. But this is a very much a signature picture of mine. These are my aunts going to my father's. Well, it was a memorial we had a year after that he died, and both of them in their 80s, and they're walking away. But this is the right angle. This is the right space. It's the way I chose to share that, and it's the same way I chose to share this. I, got up one morning. I saw the light coming across, hitting this cabinet here and hitting this little heart, and I thought, well, this is beautiful. What lens do I choose? Do I move forward? Do I move backwards? That's my choice. And it's the same choice as this picture of my father. I love this picture of my father. I love the light on him. I love his expression, his intensity. You could use a longer lens, and I could focus on his eyes and his nose and waited till a little bit of light hit him right in the eye, and somebody else might have done it that way. But that's not the way I saw it. This is the way I saw it. This is the way I chose to make the picture. My point is that there are really no rights or wrongs in photographic arrangement. Here's a situation I shot, a scene from many, many years ago, probably before most of you that are watching this were even born. It was a rally in Oxnard, California. And I decided this is the lens I would choose. I wanted to be able to, to keep enough environment in there, but I still wanted to see what was happening. But somebody else that was there might have shot the same situation with a longer lens and may have shot it like this. Or they might have chose to shoot it like this and focus where the guy on the small bike is right in the middle. Or they might have said, I don't care about the overall environment. All I care about is seeing this one small guy leading the pack of older men. That would have been a personal choice. As photographers, we choose which elements to include in our pictures. Do we want to keep sky? Do we want to have people? Do we want to have, we want to use a reflection like this picture I made in Italy? I shot this with a cell phone. It's a wide angle cell phone. That's the way I saw it. That's the way I wanted to share it. Or this picture here of men marching here out in Iowa. Somebody else would have shot this straight on with a really long lens and compressed it and saw the expressions in the face. I chose to get low. I chose to have a white background. I chose to make this, to watch for the body language to be the way that it was. And I wanted a certain amount of space. That's a personal choice. Here's a photograph that I made of Jimmy Carter back in, 1979. And a lot of people probably made a photograph of him speaking. It was a very kind of a troubling time for him, actually. It was during the Iranian crisis. And, there was a soberness about him. And so shooting tight would make sense. I chose to shoot it like this. I chose to shoot it wider. I chose because I felt like, here was this small man and here was this large country. And there was a certain symbolism in that. Unlike painting, photography is more the art of subtraction than it is addition. We start with the whole. As we say, you can't see the forest for the trees. That's a choice. Maybe this is the way somebody wants to look at it. Somebody else might say, well, I think I'm going to go a little closer and see the leaves more clearly. Someone else might say, I might even want to go closer than this and focus on a couple of leaves, or maybe just focus on one leaf. All of that is a matter of choice. You choose what you want to be in that frame and when you fire the shutter. Just as poets paint with words, we paint pictures with light and the arrangement of space. That's our choice. Somebody else might have shot this differently. There's a few of what I think are foolish and confining compositional rules. I've heard them. I've heard people that have taught photography, and sometimes I just grind my teeth, and I think, they're really shackling young photographers. They're inhibiting them from going out and really being creative by imposing this rigid set of rules on them. Here's a couple of them that I've heard through the years. Number one says, do not place your subject in the middle of a frame. Well, why not? Why not put the subject in the middle of the frame? This woman somewhere out in the Northeast, I don't remember where it was, Maine or somewhere there, I was out photographing, and she got in the middle of my frame. She jumped right in there, and she didn't move. And I didn't want her to move. It was perfect. I loved the confrontation. I loved the angle. This is where she belonged, in the middle of the frame. But if had I listened to somebody else, they'd say, oh, wait a minute, I got to move this. I got to get her in the rule of thirds to make this interesting. That's hogwash. Never photograph from the back. Have you heard that one before? I remember a student tell me one time that he failed a class in photography in high school, failed a particular assignment anyway, because he photographed somebody from the back. And the teacher said, well, people have faces. We're supposed to photograph them from the front. Where do we read that? This picture was made from the back. That's where I wanted it to be made. I didn't want to go around the front. I didn't want to see the face. I didn't want to interrupt. The body language tells me everything I need to know, just as it does here. Here's another example, photographing from the back. Now people say, well, why did you make a photograph like this? Why would you photograph a guy's head, his wrinkled head? I said, because I thought it was interesting. It reminded me of a Shar-Pei dog. You know, have a, twisted sense of humor maybe, but I thought it was interesting, and that was the composition I chose. Another thing I've heard is people say is, it's wrong. Don't chop human limbs like, arms or feet or heads. You shouldn't chop them off because that really ruins a picture. Well, guess what? I chopped his head off, and I did it intentionally. I didn't want his head. His head wasn't interesting. What was interesting was those breeches, those shorts he was wearing, and those legs, and the color, the color scheme, the white against white, and the orange and the red. That was what was interesting, not his head. Compositional rules should be guidelines. I think that's what we want to keep in mind. They are good guidelines, but there's a difference between a guideline and a rule. I think we need to liberate yourself from these rules and show us how you see the world. I hope this helps you. I hope this is a good start for us. And again, I hope this is the first of 3 lessons on composition. I thank you for your time and hope you have a great day.